Je t'avais demandé de rentrer avant qu'il fasse nuit.
J'ai pas vu le temps passer.
Alita, il faut que tu sois responsable. Tu es quelqu'un d'unique.
Hé, toi!
Tu n'es pas une fille comme les autres.
Quoi, y a un problème?
Tu te souviens pas?
De quoi tu parles?
Ido t'a trouvé dans la décharge. Donc t'as dû tomber de là-haut.
We're here, I'm here, lucky enough to be here because I stand on the shoulders of so many others. I think, you know, what you saw tonight is a result of an incredible team of people that we're lucky enough to have who worked on Alita to create what I believe is a truly unique cinematic experience. Jim Cameron and I first learned of Alita through our friend Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo introduced us to Alita in 1999. Jim, at the time, was a parent of a young teenage daughter. I was the parent of two teenage boys, or young boys. And we just saw in Alita a character that could be inspirational for youth everywhere, no matter what the gender is. A story of an innocent girl who comes into the world, and you heard it tonight where she says, I'm just an insignificant girl. How many of us at some point in our lives have thought of ourselves as insignificant? But she goes on to discover that inside of her is the ability to become a hero. And we thought that was a great message for the next generation, that inside of each one of us is that ability. That happened very fortuitously at a social lunch that Jim and Robert had. And Jim was telling Robert about the 4 Avatar sequels we're making and how long that's going to be. And Robert said to Jim, well, if that's the case, what happens to movies like Alita? And it was at the end of a 3-hour lunch. And Jim said, you have 15 more minutes. And Robert said, sure. And Jim showed him an art reel that we had created in 2005. That was a short version of the movie. And Robert fell in love with it. Jim gave him a script that Jim had written. It was too long. It was 186 pages. And gave him 600 pages of notes. And he said to Robert, if you can crack this, you can direct the movie. And Robert brought us back 4 months later, the script, and we didn't miss anything. All of the heart that Jim had written in the script, all the character work was still there. And that told us that Robert saw the movie the same way we did, and we felt that we could partner with him to parent our child, Alita, together.
But I always believe that, you know, when you are faced with a challenge that feels like it's beyond your capabilities, and you're on the right track, because it's going to take you to a different place. So I was eager to try my hand at trying to make something on the level that Jim usually does, and Jon, these big movies that appeal to people all over the world because it has a really great central message and characters and stories that has a, you know, a great mix of truth and spectacle, because the spectacle is why you go to the movies, but really the heart of the film is so strong in their films. I wanted to learn how to do that, and I knew with someone like Jim Cameron as a mentor and Jon as a producer that we could, that I could get much closer to accomplishing that with them than on my own, for sure.
Well, I love the script. The script was beautiful. And I love the story of Alita. I love the fact that in the beginning of the story, she is someone who feels quite insignificant. And by going on a journey inward, she discovers that she's not insignificant at all, that she actually is quite extraordinary and has the ability to change her life and possibly the lives of many, many, many others. So I like that. That inspired me. I did 5 months of exhaustive martial arts training. It was pure agony. I did a mélange of martial arts. We did some Muay Thai, we did some staff fighting, some eagle claw, some kickboxing to get my endurance up. I didn't want to do 2 kicks and then be winded for the rest of the day. It was arduous because in the process, some days you go in and you are making progress and you feel really powerful and cool, and then the next day you go in and you're absolute shit. I was faced with my limitations almost every day, but I pushed through them, and so what the effect of that was, I was not only training my body for Alita, I was also training my mind almost by accident. So yes, it was an uphill battle. For me, I'm small and I'm fit and I'm active, but it takes a lifetime to accomplish some of those moves.
Well, what's great, what we really loved and what Jim responded to in the material was that Koshiro didn't write a graphic novel that was Asian-centric. It was a melting pot society. Originally, it takes place more like Kansas City. It was actually Jim that realized scientifically it would need to be closer to the equator to have a space elevator work. So he had picked, before I came aboard, somewhere more like Panama City, which I thought would give it much very different feel than the usual dystopian futures we see. It would be a warmer look. It would feel more like a melting pot. It's one of the last cities that survives, so everyone goes there. And that's what really freed us up to make something that was just more universal and told a bigger story.
And you put our own city within your own lot. That must have been...
We built the actual set, yeah, in my parking lot. It's still there. Y'all can come visit.
It needs to be said that his parking lot used to be the parking lot of an airport.
Why did we pick Chris? Christoph was my first and only choice for the role. We had a 3-hour first meeting where we talked about our children, our daughters, and you could just, you just feel a very warm fatherly figure about it, but yet you could have the edge of being a hunter warrior. You needed to have both sides. You couldn't have somebody that was too dark or too light, and Christoph can do anything. And we had such a great meeting that I knew that he was the guy. And it brings just such gravitas to the whole project that it really set the bar early of what we were going to be going for. And I never could imagine anyone else, and of course now that we've done it, I can't imagine ever playing it. But that's why I chose him, was really for who he was as a person first, to kind of pick people for who they are, and then, of course, for his artistry and for his craft. Thank you.
Look, I look for story. What's the story? And then I think about what I can contribute. And after talking to Robert, and after talking to Jon, and after talking to Jim, after meeting Rosa, I thought I can contribute something. And if you have a story you like, a place in it, and the people you really desire to work with, there it is, no decision necessary.
Well, I think that audiences are going to have to tell us if they want to Alita too. Koshiro created this vast world with many, many stories. We really only pulled from the first 3 and a little bit of the 4th, of what is now 33, graphic novels. So if audiences, tell us, I know Jim would love to go back there. I know Robert, I think Rosa, Christoph, we would all love, because these are movies that have a theme that is bigger than their genre. The theme is what you leave the theater with, the plot you leave at the theater. And we would love to tell movies where we touch people and they're affected by the cinema experience.
What about the editing?
The editing, it was pretty lean. I mean, Jim's original script, I did most of the editing before we shot, because Jim had a long script. It was 186 pages, which would be 186 minutes instead of 120. And I knew that wouldn't fly with the studio or anybody, so I had to do a lot of editing. And so we ended up really not cutting anything out of the actual movie. There was one scene there's some scenes that we truncated, but there was only one scene that we took out because we just didn't need it, where Hugo was helping her train. It was after she did the first motorball test, and when after she was in the alley fight, realized she could trigger a memory through combat. So he was trying to get her to whack some things on the skates, and she almost gets a flash, but she doesn't, and she realizes it has to be a life or death situation. We just ended up using that line as a line of dialogue later instead, and not using the whole scene, just to keep it. I wanted to keep it pretty tight, you know, because that's just felt like the pace of it. I think that was it. Really, there was nothing. I wouldn't include it on the Blu-ray or anything because we'd have to go do all the visual effects for it. We cut it really early, and it was the first day of shooting it, so we were just kind of getting our bearings, and it was not an essential scene, so it was a good scene to start with. You know, I didn't know the manga that well before, because when I first heard about this project, it was back in 2000. I saw an announcement that Jim was going to make this his next movie. It had a picture of Jim, and it had a picture of Alita from the manga. So I thought, oh, I can see why he would want to do that, because it's, you know, it's really strong female protagonist, a cyborg, it's a future, it's all this stuff Jim loves. And I purposely stayed away from the manga because I didn't want to. It said it was his next movie, so I thought it was going to come out in a couple of years. So I thought I don't want to spoil the story and know what's going to happen. So I stayed away from it. So my first exposure to the story was actually reading Jim's script, not the manga, but I actually read his script first. I thought it was just fantastic. And then I went and read the manga and saw how he took the manga and he really crafted a very cinematic story that could play to the whole world. So it didn't feel, it wasn't like with Sin City where I was going and taking each page and just making it move, where I was truly just translating it, not even adapting it. I was just making that move on screen. This was really a translation that he did, an adaptation that he did, where he took the essence of the manga, but created a whole much more, even the creator saw it and was surprised by how much heart and emotion that it had. I mean, it went way beyond what was in the manga. So we felt that we had something really special that didn't rely on people's pre-knowledge of the manga or having to stay super true to every frame of it, like I had done religiously on the other picture.